Mistakes that drain your blessings. Part 1. The Silent Thief. Pride. Opening hook. Have you ever noticed how sometimes the fastest way to lose your blessings is to start believing they're all your own doing? It's like carrying a cup of water in the desert, and instead of thanking the source that gave it, you lift it high and shout, "Look at me, I found this all by myself." The problem is, when you forget where your blessings come from, the cup begins to crack. Slowly, the water leaks out. And before you realize it, you're standing there, empty-handed, thirsty, wondering where it all went. Storytelling. Let me tell you a story. Years ago, there was a man in my neighborhood. Let's call him Richard. Richard was the definition of success. Big house, luxury car, a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. He started his company from scratch, and after years of hard work, it really took off. People admired him. He was living what many of us would call the dream. But something shifted. At first, Richard would often say things like, "I'm so grateful the right people came into my life at the right time," or, "I couldn't have done this without my team." But as the years went by, his language changed. Gratitude slowly disappeared from his vocabulary. Instead of we, it became I. Instead of acknowledging support, he boasted about how he alone carried everything on his back. At dinners, he would brag. At family gatherings, he would make subtle digs about how others weren't as smart or as hardworking as him. His friends laughed politely, but inside, they began to withdraw. His wife felt unseen, his children felt unimportant, his employees felt undervalued. Then one day, he had a health scare, a mild heart attack. The doctor told him stress had been eating away at his body for years. Richard was shocked, not just by the health news, but by the silence in his hospital room. No friends visiting. His wife distant. His children too busy to come. For the first time, he realized that though he had gained wealth, he had quietly lost peace, health, and companionship. And that's the thing about pride. It doesn't announce itself with loud footsteps. It's a silent thief. You don't notice it walking into your house, but by the time it leaves, it has stolen more than you imagined. Your relationships, your joy, and even your health. Teaching and reflection. Here's the deeper truth. Pride shuts the door to grace. What do I mean by that? Imagine grace as a stream of fresh water. Gratitude keeps the stream flowing into your life. Every time you acknowledge, this blessing is not just me, it's life, it's others, it's God, it's the universe working through me. The stream keeps running clear and strong. But pride is like placing a boulder in the stream. It blocks the flow. You may still have some water left in your cup for a while, but eventually, it runs dry. This is why you sometimes see people who seem to have everything, yet they look empty. It's not the wealth, it's not the career, it's the absence of grace. And grace leaves quietly when pride takes the throne. Now, I'm not saying confidence is bad. Confidence is a gift. Believing in yourself is necessary. But pride is different. Confidence says, "I can do this, and I'm grateful for the strength, the help, the opportunities I've been given." Pride says, "I did this all by myself, and I owe no one anything." One uplifts, the other isolates. Personal reflection angle. I'll be honest with you. I've fallen into this trap myself. There were times in my life when something went right, a promotion, a project, a breakthrough, and instead of pausing to give thanks, I silently patted myself on the back and thought, "Yeah, that's all me." And it felt good, for a while. But I also noticed something strange. Whenever I leaned too far into that self-made story, I became harsher with others, less patient, less compassionate. And eventually, I felt lonelier. But every time I remembered to say, "Thank you," whether to God, to the people around me, or even just silently in my heart, the opposite happened. My relationships warmed. My stress eased. Life felt lighter. That's when I learned, gratitude is not just about being polite, it's about keeping the channel of blessings open. Illustration plus deeper question. Think about it this way. Have you ever watched someone walking a tightrope? They look steady, almost invincible. But the truth is, all it takes is one wrong move, one puff of wind, and they can fall. Pride is like believing you're balancing perfectly on your own, while ignoring the safety net beneath you, the net of people who've helped you, the net of circumstances you didn't control, the net of divine grace. So here's a question I want to leave you with. In your own life right now, where might pride be sneaking in? Is there an area where you've forgotten to acknowledge the people or the grace that supported you? Closing. Transition to next episode. Because here's the reality. Pride isn't the only thief of blessings. There are quieter ones, subtler ones. The kind that drain your joy slowly, without you even noticing. One of them is complaining. Yes, complaining. It seems harmless, even natural. But in the next episode, we'll talk about how every complaint, spoken or unspoken, secretly chips away at your blessings and leaves you with less joy than before. So stay with me, because if pride is the silent thief, then complaining is the hidden poison. And once you see it, you'll never complain the same way again. Complaining, poison of the heart. Opening hook. What if I told you that every complaint you make secretly robs you of joy? Think about that for a second. Every little sigh, every muttered "this isn't fair," every silent frustration about what you don't have, it's like a tiny thief sneaking into your heart and walking away with your peace. Storytelling. The two neighbors. Let me share a story. There were two neighbors who lived side by side for over 20 years. The first, let's call her Mary, wasn't rich by any measure. She lived in a modest little house with peeling paint on the porch. Her car was 10 years old, her clothes simple. But if you visited her home, you'd notice something remarkable: laughter. Mary always found a reason to smile. When her garden bloomed, she would proudly show her roses to anyone passing by. When her children came home with just average grades, she'd celebrate their effort with homemade cookies. Her gratitude wasn't loud, it was gentle but constant. Then there was her neighbor, Thomas. Now Thomas had more money, a bigger house, and a newer car. From the outside, you'd think he was the lucky one. But inside his home, complaints filled the air. If it rained, he said the weather ruined his weekend. If it was sunny, he said it was too hot. When he got a raise, he complained that taxes were taking too much of it. Even at family dinners, instead of enjoying the meal, he'd grumble about how the food could have been better. Over time, you could see the difference written on their faces. Mary's eyes twinkled, her laugh had warmth. Thomas's face looked tired, his smile forced. And here's the irony: the one who had less wealth lived like she had abundance, while the one who had more wealth lived as if it was never enough. Teaching: why complaining is poison. Here's the truth that story reveals: complaining creates scarcity, even in the middle of abundance. When you complain, you train your mind to focus only on what's missing, what's broken, what's wrong. It's like wearing glasses that only highlight flaws. You could be surrounded by blessings, but your eyes won't see them. And if you don't see them, you can't enjoy them. Science even backs this up. Studies in psychology show that constant complaining reshapes your brain's neural pathways. In simple terms, the more you complain, the better your brain gets at finding things to complain about. It becomes your default mode. Like a muscle you train every day, except this one makes you weaker, not stronger. But gratitude does the opposite. Gratitude rewires your brain to notice joy, beauty, and connection. It amplifies what you already have, so your life feels fuller, even if nothing external changes. Personal reflection angle. Let me be honest with you. I've been both Mary and Thomas at different times in my life. There was a season when I used to complain constantly. I complained about traffic, about the weather, about not having enough time, not having enough money. And sure, I had reasons. Life is stressful, bills pile up, people disappoint us. But here's what I noticed: the more I complained, the heavier everything felt. Even small problems grew into giants in my mind. Then I started experimenting with something simple. Each morning, I wrote down 3 things I was grateful for. Sometimes it was small: I'm grateful for hot coffee. Other times it was deeper: I'm grateful my parents are still alive. And slowly, my lens shifted. Problems didn't disappear, but they stopped swallowing me whole. My energy returned. My relationships improved. I laughed more. It wasn't magic. It was perspective. Illustration plus deeper question. I want you to imagine this: 2 people sitting down to eat the same meal, a bowl of soup. The first person takes a spoonful and says, it's a little too salty. And that's all they focus on. Every bite becomes proof that the meal isn't good enough. The second person takes a spoonful and says, it's warm and it's filling. I'm glad I have this on a cold day. That simple shift turns the same bowl of soup into a gift instead of a disappointment. Now here's the question. In your own life, How often are you turning blessings into burdens through complaining? Could it be that the reason joy feels scarce isn't because you don't have enough, but because complaining has poisoned the way you see what you do have? Expanding perspective. And here's something deeper. Complaining doesn't just rob you of joy, it robs the people around you too. Think about how you feel when you're around someone who always complains. You feel drained, right? Their energy spreads. Negativity is contagious, but so is gratitude. When you're around someone who sees light in the ordinary, who gives thanks even for little things, it uplifts you. Their energy spreads too. That's why spiritual teachers across traditions warn about the danger of complaining. It's not about ignoring problems or pretending everything is fine. It's about choosing the perspective that strengthens you rather than weakens you. It's about protecting your heart from poison. Closing. Transition to next episode. So let's bring it back to the core lesson. Complaining is the poison of the heart. It makes abundance feel like scarcity. It turns blessings into burdens. It blinds you to the gifts already surrounding you. Gratitude, on the other hand, doesn't add anything new to your life. It simply lets you see what was always there. But here's the thing. As damaging as complaining is, there's an even deeper danger. Something quieter, but more corrosive. Worse than complaining is envy, the slow fire that burns your blessings from the inside. That's what we'll uncover in the next episode. Because if complaining steals your joy, envy steals your soul. Envy, the hidden fire. Opening hook. Envy doesn't just hurt others, it burns the very hands that hold it. Most of us don't like to admit we feel envy. It sounds ugly, something we'd rather point out in others than confess in ourselves. But here's the truth. Envy is one of those emotions that slips quietly into the heart. And once it takes root, it doesn't just poison relationships, it eats away at your own pace. Storytelling, the colleague. I once knew a man, we'll call him David. David was brilliant, hardworking, and ambitious. At the office, he had everything going for him. A good salary, respect from his peers, even a stable family life at home. But there was one thing he couldn't stand: watching others succeed. When a colleague got promoted, instead of congratulating them, he'd mutter, "They probably got lucky." When someone bought a new house, he'd find reasons to criticize it. If someone shared good news, you could see it in his eyes. He wasn't happy for them. He was calculating, comparing, silently angry that the spotlight wasn't on him. Over time, that envy hardened him. People stopped sharing their wins around him because they knew he wouldn't celebrate. Friendships grew shallow. His colleagues pulled away. And here's the sad part. He wasn't really angry at them. He was angry at himself, though he didn't realize it. Because envy blinds you. It makes you so obsessed with what others have, you forget to see the gifts in your own hands. Teaching what envy really does. Here's the thing about envy. It's like holding fire in your bare hands, hoping the other person will get burned. But in the end, you're the one who suffers most. When you envy someone, you're really saying, "What I have is not enough. Who I am is not enough." That belief doesn't hurt the person you envy. It eats away at your own contentment. It makes gratitude impossible. It turns life into a constant competition, even when no one else is competing with you. And think about this. Envy is built on illusion. You don't actually know what someone else's life is really like. You see their highlight reel, not their struggles. You see their house, not their mortgage. You see their smile, not their sleepless nights. And yet, envy convinces you they have it all while you have nothing. But gratitude breaks the illusion. Gratitude says, "What I have is enough for me today. What I am is enough in this moment." That shift doesn't just give you peace, it gives you freedom. Reflection, a mirror for us all. Now let me ask you honestly, have you ever caught yourself scrolling through social media, looking at someone else's vacation, their car, their relationship, and feeling that little sting of envy? I know I have. And it's sneaky, right? You don't want to admit it, but it shows up anyway. Why not me? Why don't I have that? And in that moment, you stop enjoying your own life. You could be sitting in a comfortable chair, sipping coffee, surrounded by your own blessings, and yet your heart is restless because envy has stolen your joy. So here's the question. What if instead of letting envy take root, we flipped it? What if every time we felt envy, we used it as a signal to look inward, not outward? Instead of saying, "Why do they have that?" Ask, "What gifts have I overlooked in myself?" Personal angle, a turning point. I remember a season when one of my closest friends was advancing in his career much faster than I was. He was traveling, earning more, gaining recognition. And while I clapped and smiled for him, inside I wrestled with envy. I felt small. I felt left behind. But then one day, I sat down and wrote a list of things I already had. My health, my family, my skills, my opportunities. And I realized something powerful. His success didn't take away from mine. Life isn't a pie where someone else's bigger slice means less for you. There's enough to go around. The moment I shifted from envy to gratitude, I felt lighter. I could genuinely celebrate him again, because his win didn't mean my loss. Deeper perspective, the spiritual dimension. Here's why spiritual traditions call envy one of the most dangerous poisons of the soul. It not only blinds you to your gifts, it blinds you to your purpose. Think about it. How can you walk your path if you're always staring at someone else's? How can you use your blessings if you're busy comparing them to another's? Envy makes you miss the very thing you were born to do, because you're too busy wishing for someone else's life. And in that sense, envy doesn't just waste blessings, it rejects them. It's like telling life itself, what you gave me isn't good enough. No wonder it burns from the inside. Practical insight, flipping envy into growth. So what do we do with envy? Pretending it doesn't exist won't work. It's part of being human. But here's a shift that helps. Instead of letting envy fester, let it guide you. When you feel envy, ask yourself, what is this showing me about what I truly desire? Maybe you envy someone's fitness, not because you want to be them, but because you secretly long to take better care of your own health. Maybe you envy someone's art, their career, their freedom, not because you lack worth, but because you crave creativity, growth, or adventure in your own life. Envy, when reframed, isn't a curse. It's a compass. It points you toward the areas of your life you're neglecting, the seeds waiting to be watered. But only if you let it transform into action, instead of bitterness. So let's come back to the core. Envy doesn't just hurt others, it burns the very hands that hold it. It blinds you to your gifts, traps you in illusion, and steals your joy. But gratitude, awareness, and self-acceptance put out that fire. They let you see that you already hold treasures in your own hands. And yet, there's another form of blindness just as dangerous. Not the envy that eats away silently, but the careless speech that wastes blessings out loud. Words spoken without thought, without kindness, can scatter the very fortune we've been given. That's what we'll explore in the next part of this journey. Because if envy burns inside, careless words can burn everything around us. Careless words, spilling the cup, opening hook. Words can either multiply your blessings or spill them straight onto the ground. Think about that for a moment. How many times in your life have you said something in frustration, only to wish you could take it back? Maybe it was a heated argument, maybe just a careless joke, but once words leave your lips, you can't catch them. They ripple outward, shaping the atmosphere around you, and sometimes they spill more than just words, they spill blessings. Story, the parent and the child. I want to share a story that may sound familiar. A father comes home after a long, exhausting day. Work was stressful, bills were piling up, and he felt overwhelmed. As he walked through the door, his young daughter ran up to him, holding a drawing she had worked on all afternoon. Her eyes were shining, waiting for his approval. But instead of seeing her joy, he saw the mess of crayons on the floor, the noise, and the distraction from his worries. Without thinking, he snapped, "What is this supposed to be? You should be studying, not wasting time on silly drawings." The little girl's smile faded instantly. She walked away quietly, the drawing slipping from her fingers. Now here's the painful part. The father didn't mean to crush her spirit. He loved her, but his careless words planted a seed of doubt in her heart. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe my efforts don't matter. And just like that, with a few careless words, he spilled a cup of blessing, family harmony, a child's joy, the priceless gift of encouragement. Teaching. Speech creates reality. Here's what we often forget. Speech creates reality. Words aren't just sounds. They carry energy, direction, and weight. Think of words like seeds. Every sentence you speak plants something in the hearts of others. Hope, fear, love, or resentment. Over time, those seeds grow into the atmosphere of your home, your workplace, your relationships. This isn't abstract, it's practical. A kind word can light up someone's entire day. A harsh word can break someone's spirit for years. Families, marriages, friendships, they rise or fall not just on actions, but on the tone of daily conversations. Have you ever noticed how a compliment can linger with you for days, while a single insult can echo for years? That's the power of speech. We don't just use words, we live inside the world they create. Reflection, everyday examples. Think about your own life. Have you ever been lifted by someone's encouragement at just the right moment? Maybe a teacher who said, "I believe in you." Maybe a friend who told you, "You've got what it takes." Those words can change the course of your story. But on the flip side, have you ever been torn down by words that seem small at the time, but cut deep? Maybe a careless remark about your weight, your talent, your worth. Words like that don't just vanish, they leave marks. And if we are honest, we've all been on both sides. We've been hurt by careless words, and we've also spoken them. Maybe not out of malice, but out of exhaustion, impatience, or distraction. Personal experience, a wake-up moment. I'll never forget a time when I caught myself in this trap. I was stressed, juggling too many responsibilities, and someone close to me asked for help with something small. Instead of listening with patience, I brushed them off with a sharp, dismissive reply. The look on their face, that sudden quiet, stayed with me. Later that night, I realized it wasn't just about that one moment. My words had created an atmosphere. Instead of safety, I had created distance. Instead of connection, I had built a wall. It was a wake-up call. Because it's easy to think words are temporary, but the truth is, they echo. They either build bridges or burn them. Deeper perspective, ancient wisdom. Across cultures and traditions, there's a reason speech is considered sacred. The Bible says, death and life are in the power of the tongue. Buddhist teachings remind us of right speech, words that are truthful, kind, and useful. Even modern psychology tells us that affirmations, language, and self-talk literally rewire the brain. So when we speak carelessly, we are not just breaking social rules, we are misusing one of the most powerful tools given to us, the ability to shape reality through language. Imagine this. Every word you speak is like pouring water into a cup. Over time, that cup can overflow with blessings, or, if you pour out bitterness, you spill it all on the ground until nothing is left. Practical insight, guarding the tongue. So how do we avoid spilling blessings through careless words? Pause before reacting. Sometimes a breath is all it takes to prevent damage. Ask yourself, do I need to say this? And if I do, how can I say it with care? Choose encouragement over criticism. Pointing out flaws is easy, but words that encourage create strength. Next time you see effort, acknowledge it, even if the outcome isn't perfect. Be mindful of tone. It's not just what you say, it's how you say it. A kind message delivered harshly still feels like rejection. Repair when you spill. If you've spoken carelessly, don't let pride stop you. Go back. Apologize. Rebuild. The humility of "I was wrong" is often more powerful than never making a mistake. Reframing. Words as a legacy. Here's something worth pondering. One day, long after we are gone, people may forget most of what we did, but they'll remember how our words made them feel. Children carry their parents' words into adulthood. Spouses carry each other's words into their hearts. Even strangers can carry your words for life. A kind smile and a thoughtful word in a moment of despair can literally save someone. So the question is, what kind of legacy are your words building? Closing transition. So remember this, words can either multiply your blessings or spill them to the ground. Every conversation is a chance to build or to break, to water seeds of harmony or to scatter them in the dirt. But sometimes, the danger isn't in what we say, it's in what we forget to do, especially when it comes to giving back. Because blessings aren't meant to be hoarded, they're meant to circulate. And that brings us to the next mistake. When we stop giving, we stop the flow. That's what we'll uncover in the next part of this journey. Withholding generosity. Opening hook. What you cling to too tightly often slips away. Have you ever noticed that? Money, opportunities, even relationships. When we grip them with fear instead of holding them with love, they tend to escape our grasp. The story begins. Let me tell you an old story about a farmer. He lived on rich land, fertile and abundant. Every year, his fields produced enough grain to feed his family many times over, with plenty left to sell at the market. The village around him admired his success, and neighbors often came asking for a handful of seeds or for help when their crops failed. But the farmer had a belief: if I share, I'll have less. If I give, I'll end up with nothing. So he locked his grain in storage bins, guarded his seeds like gold, and turned his back whenever a neighbor came to his door. At first, it seemed like his plan was working. He had barns full of grain, a house that overflowed with supplies. But then something began to change. The soil that once gave so generously turned dry. His crops shrank, season by season. The rain bypassed his fields. In time, his once thriving land grew barren, and his wealth crumbled with it. Meanwhile, the neighbors he had refused to help began sharing among themselves. They supported one another, exchanged seeds, and though their fields were smaller, their harvests remained steady. Their land, unlike his, stayed alive. The farmer had tried to cling to his blessings by hoarding them. Instead, he strangled them. Lesson from the story. This story might sound like a fable, but the truth behind it is timeless. Generosity keeps blessings flowing. Withholding chokes them. We often think the opposite, that giving diminishes us, that if we share our money, time, or care, we'll have less for ourselves. But life doesn't work like subtraction, it works like circulation. Think about water. When it flows, rivers stay alive, nourishing everything around them. But when water is trapped, unmoving, it becomes stagnant, toxic, lifeless. Blessings are the same. They're meant to circulate. When we hoard them, they lose their vitality. Real life reflection. I wonder, have you ever met someone who had everything on the outside but lived in scarcity on the inside? A wealthy person who never seemed satisfied, no matter how much they had. They grip their money so tightly, but their life feels smaller and smaller. And on the other hand, have you met someone who doesn't have much, yet they always seem to have enough? Enough joy, enough warmth, enough connection. These are often the people who share freely, the ones who give you a meal even if it means less for themselves. Somehow, life seems to favor them. Psychologists call it the paradox of generosity. When we give, we actually gain. Our mental health improves, our relationships deepen, our sense of meaning expands. It turns out the ancient wisdom was right all along. Personal angle. I'll never forget the first time I experienced this in my own life. There was a season when I was so focused on saving, every paycheck guarded, every expense analyzed. I thought security came from clinging tightly to what I earned. And yet, no matter how much I saved, I never felt safe. I felt anxious. I felt like I could lose it all at any moment. One day, almost against my better judgment, I gave a chunk of my savings to help a friend in crisis. And something shifted. Of course, I had less money in the bank, but strangely, I felt lighter, freer. I wasn't thinking about losing anymore. I was thinking about connecting, helping, being part of something bigger than myself. That moment opened a door. Generosity wasn't a loss, it was a release. And from then on, the money I made seemed to stretch further. The opportunities seemed to open more naturally. It was as if by unclenching my grip, life could finally flow again. Broader analogy, nature itself. Nature constantly teaches us this truth. A tree doesn't hoard its fruit. It offers freely, to animals, to humans, to the earth. In giving, it ensures the cycle of life continues, seeds are spread, and the forest thrives. The ocean doesn't cling to its waves. It gives them away, endlessly, only to receive them back in rhythm. The air we breathe, inhale, exhale. What if we only inhaled and never released? We wouldn't survive. Life itself is a rhythm of giving and receiving. When we withhold, we break the rhythm. When we give, we join the flow, challenging the audience. So here's the question: where in your life are you hoarding? Is it money, stored away but never shared? Is it time, too busy to listen to a loved one who needs you? Is it forgiveness, clutched tightly while relationships wither? Is it even simple kindness, withheld because you think it won't make a difference? And then ask, what has it cost you to cling so tightly? Peace of mind? Connection? The joy of generosity? Because here's the paradox: the more we clutch, the less secure we feel. The more we give, the more secure we actually become. Modern angle, society at large. Look around our world today. Whole systems are built on withholding, companies hoarding wealth, nations stockpiling resources, individuals living behind emotional walls. And what do we see? Division, isolation, scarcity mindsets, even in the midst of abundance. But wherever generosity appears, whether in a community supporting its weakest members or in neighbors helping neighbors after a disaster, we see life return. We see trust, resilience, and a sense of belonging that money alone can never buy. Maybe the farmer's barren land isn't just his story. Maybe it's ours, if we forget to share. Practical invitation. So what does this mean for you, right now? It doesn't mean giving recklessly. It doesn't mean ignoring your own needs. It means practicing generosity as a way of keeping life flowing. Give a little of your time to someone who feels unseen. Give a word of encouragement to a coworker who's struggling. Give a portion of your resources, however small, to a cause that matters. The point isn't the amount, it's the spirit. When you act from generosity, you step into the current of life instead of standing outside of it. The farmer learned too late. Hoarding killed his harvest. But we still have the chance to choose differently. The message is simple. What you withhold with fear eventually slips away. What you release with generosity multiplies. So ask yourself, do you want to clutch your blessings until they vanish, or let them flow until they overflow? And remember, generosity is powerful, but it's not everything. Because even if you give freely, blessings wither if your heart forgets to be grateful. That's the next mistake we'll uncover, the danger of ingratitude. Ingratitude, turning wine into water. A blessing unrecognized soon becomes invisible. Have you ever noticed that? The very things we once prayed for, the things that felt miraculous when they arrived, somehow fade into the background the moment we stop being grateful. And then, no matter how much we gain, it all feels empty. Let me tell you about a man I once knew. On the outside, he looked like he had everything: a successful business, a beautiful home, a healthy family. At first, he was thrilled by it all. Every new deal felt like a victory, every paycheck a gift, every meal at the table with his children a moment of pride. But slowly, something shifted. He began to look past what he already had, and only toward what he didn't. He complained that his car wasn't new enough, that his home wasn't big enough, that his family didn't appreciate him enough. He compared himself constantly to people who had more money, more recognition, more luxury. What do you think happened? The joy he once had vanished. The laughter at the dinner table felt hollow. His success, once sweet, turned bitter. Even though his blessings remained, they became invisible to him, because he never paused to be grateful. He had turned wine into water. Lesson from the story. Here's the truth. Gratitude multiplies blessings, but ingratitude dries the well. When we fail to recognize what we have, it's as if life slowly pulls those gifts out of our reach. Not always physically, but emotionally. Because if you can't see what's already in your hands, even a million more won't fill the emptiness inside. We live in a culture that constantly whispers, more. More money, more possessions, more experiences, more followers, more recognition. And while there's nothing wrong with ambition, the danger is forgetting to stop and say, what I have right now is already enough. It's already beautiful. Without gratitude, enough never arrives. With gratitude, even a little becomes abundant. A real-life reflection. Think about it. Have you ever longed for something so deeply? A job, a relationship, a home, and when you finally got it, after a while, you found yourself dissatisfied again? The excitement wore off. You started noticing flaws. You began wishing for the next thing. It's human nature to adapt. Psychologists call it the hedonic treadmill. We get used to new comforts quickly, and soon, they don't bring the joy they once did. But gratitude interrupts that cycle. Gratitude reminds us, this moment, this gift, is still extraordinary, even if I've had it for a while. Without gratitude, life feels like chasing a horizon we can never reach. With gratitude, life feels like resting in a sunset that's already here. Personal angle. I've experienced this in my own life more times than I'd like to admit. There were years when I was climbing fast, earning more, achieving more, and yet I was restless. I'd lie awake at night thinking, when I reach that next milestone, then I'll feel fulfilled. But when I reached it, the finish line moved again. One day, almost out of desperation, I tried something simple, writing down 3 things I was grateful for each morning. Some days it was something big, like good health. Other days it was small, like the warmth of my coffee or the way sunlight hit the window. At first, it felt trivial, but slowly, I noticed a shift. My mind stopped racing toward the next thing and started noticing the beauty in what was already there. Gratitude didn't just change how I felt, it changed how I lived. I became more patient, more generous, more present. It was as if the blessings I thought had dried up were suddenly flowing again, not because they had changed, but because I had. Broader analogy: wine into water. Ingratitude is like taking fine wine, rich, deep, intoxicating, and pouring it back into water. It strips life of its flavor. It turns abundance into scarcity. Gratitude, on the other hand, is the alchemy that does the opposite. It turns ordinary moments into extraordinary ones. A simple meal tastes like a feast. A small paycheck feels like provision. A hug from a loved one feels like a miracle. It's not that gratitude creates more blessings. It reveals the blessings that were already there, challenging the audience. So let me ask you, when was the last time you said, out loud, "I'm grateful"? Not just thought it, not just a passing acknowledgement, but truly paused and recognized the miracle of your life? The breath you're taking right now. The people who love you, even imperfectly. The fact that you woke up today, with another chance to live, to learn, to grow. How often do you overlook these because you're busy scanning the horizon for something more? And here's the hard truth: the moment we stop being grateful, even what we do have feels like nothing. Modern angle, our world today. In many ways, ingratitude has become our cultural default. Social media fuels comparison. Advertisements convince us we are lacking. News cycles remind us of everything going wrong. But imagine a culture of gratitude instead. A society where people noticed the small daily miracles, appreciated each other, and found joy not just in acquiring, but in acknowledging. Wouldn't that change everything? It's not naive optimism. Gratitude has been proven to lower stress, strengthen relationships, improve health, and even lengthen life expectancy. It's medicine for the human spirit. Practical invitation. So how do we cultivate it? It doesn't have to be complicated. Start with one habit. Every evening, before you close your eyes, name 3 things you're grateful for. They don't have to be dramatic. In fact, the smaller, the better. A smile from a stranger. A warm shower. The sound of rain outside. And here's the key: don't just list them. Feel them. Let your body remember what it was like to experience them. That's how gratitude sinks in. It's not just mental, it's emotional. Over time, you'll notice something. Life feels fuller. Not because circumstances changed, but because your awareness did. Closing reflection. Ingratitude blinds us. It turns abundance into emptiness. It's like living surrounded by treasure but never opening the chest. Gratitude, on the other hand, is the key that opens it, revealing what was always there. So remember this: a blessing unrecognized soon becomes invisible. Gratitude multiplies. Ingratitude dries the well. And while ingratitude is powerful enough to wither blessings, there is one mistake that cancels them even faster: disrespect. That's where we are going next. Disrespect, closing the door to grace. Hook. When respect leaves, blessings quietly follow. Have you ever noticed how disrespect can quietly erode opportunities, relationships, and joy? Disrespect is one of the silent thieves of blessings, often going unnoticed until it's too late. Illustrative story. Imagine a young man, intelligent, energetic, but proud and impatient. He mocks his teachers, dismisses the wisdom of elders, and frequently belittles those older than him. At first, his raw talent brings quick successes, but slowly, doors begin to close. Mentors distance themselves, community support fades, opportunities vanish. His abilities remain, but the channels through which blessings flow have been cut off by his own attitude. Blessings don't fall from the sky, they flow through the connections and respect we cultivate. When you disrespect those who could guide you, that flow stops. Lesson: respect is not just a moral value, it is a channel for blessings. Listening, honoring experience, and showing genuine respect opens opportunities, strengthens relationships, and attracts positive energy. Lack of respect, however, blocks the flow, no matter how talented or fortunate you are. Look around. Those who sustain long-term success are often humble, respectful, and grateful for guidance. In families and communities, respect binds love and nurtures lasting happiness. Modern perspective. Disrespect today comes in subtle forms: sarcastic remarks, careless online comments, or dismissive attitudes at work. Even being straightforward can silently shut the doors of blessing. Psychology studies show disrespect increases stress, isolation, and reduces collaboration opportunities. Reflection questions. Ask yourself, this past week, have I been disrespectful? Did I listen and value those who helped me? Even under pressure, can I maintain respect rather than belittling others? Sometimes a sincere apology, a nod, or a heartfelt thank you can reopen streams of blessings you never noticed were blocked. Personal experience. I remember snapping at an older mentor, thinking I already knew enough. That straightforward attitude caused lost opportunities and cooled a valuable relationship. Later, realizing my disrespect blocked blessings, I corrected my behavior. Respect restored the flow, and opportunities returned naturally. Respect opens doors to blessings. Disrespect closes doors. Attitude determines flow. Small actions make a big difference. A thank you, attentive listening, a nod. These sustain the flow of blessings. If disrespect closes doors, arrogance builds walls. In the next episode, we'll confront arrogance, the mistake that drains blessings faster than anything else. Are you ready to face it? Arrogance. Building walls around yourself. Arrogance doesn't make you taller, it just makes the ground beneath you crumble. Have you ever seen someone talented and intelligent fail spectacularly because of overconfidence? Arrogance is one of the most subtle thieves of blessings. It creeps in as pride, dismissing others, or thinking you don't need guidance. Story. Imagine a young, ambitious leader. At first, everything seems perfect. Respectful employees, successful projects, opportunities everywhere. But confidence turns into arrogance. He ignores colleagues' advice, dismisses ideas, and believes he knows everything. One day, a critical decision goes wrong. No one can intervene, no advice is heeded, and failure spreads. His skills haven't changed, but the wall of arrogance he built blocked the flow of blessings. This isn't limited to leaders. It appears in families, friendships, and even within our own minds. Arrogance isolates you from opportunities, guidance, and the good around you. Lesson. Humility keeps blessings alive. By listening, acknowledging mistakes, and valuing other perspectives, you keep the flow of opportunity and luck open. Ignoring guidance closes the door, no matter your talent. Look at yourself. Have you ever ignored valuable advice because you thought, I know better? Have you refused help thinking you didn't need it? Arrogance doesn't just cost opportunities, it poisons the environment around you. Modern perspective. Today, arrogance shows in dismissing colleagues, belittling elders' experience, or being self-satisfied with achievements while neglecting relationships. Studies show humble leaders sustain success longer. Arrogance builds walls. The higher they rise, the less light passes through. Reflection questions. Ask yourself, in the past week, have I acted proudly, ignored advice, or thought I didn't need help? Could opportunities have been lost because I didn't listen? Small acts of humility, listening, acknowledging limits, valuing others, can tear down these walls and restore the flow of blessings. Personal experience. I once ignored colleagues' advice, thinking I had all the answers. At first, things seemed fine, but soon failures and strained relationships made me realize arrogance blocked my ability to learn and receive support. When I embraced humility, listened, and valued opinions, opportunities returned naturally. Takeaways. Arrogance builds invisible walls, isolating you and blocking blessings. Humility keeps blessings alive. Attitude determines the flow. Small actions have big results. Seek advice, admit mistakes, appreciate others. These can break the walls of arrogance. Closing and tease next part. Arrogance often leads to anger. When pride is entrenched, negative emotions erupt, causing even greater losses. Next, we'll explore anger, the most powerful thief of blessings, and how to recognize it before it's too late. Anger, the storm that destroys. Hook. One moment of anger can burn down a forest of blessings. Story and teaching. Imagine a long-standing friendship or a marriage that has grown through years of shared memories, promises, and trust. All of it, seemingly unshakable, can vanish in an instant because of anger. A harsh word spoken in the heat of the moment, a hasty action without thought, or an impulsive reaction to hurt can shake the foundation of any relationship. Just one brief lapse is enough to make trust crumble and destroy bonds carefully nurtured over years. Anger, when left unchecked, is like a storm. At first, it seems to affect only you, but in reality, it wreaks havoc around you. It topples patience, blows away empathy, and burns the opportunities for reconciliation. Even if you later apologize, the scars left by anger do not fade easily. In Buddhist teachings, anger is likened to fire. When you let this fire blaze, it doesn't just consume others, it consumes your own heart. All the blessings you have cultivated through kindness, patience, and compassion risk being destroyed in the flames of a moment's rage. In contrast, patience and calm act like a protective shield for what is precious. They preserve relationships and nurture inner peace. Ask yourself, when you feel anger, are you truly in control, or is the emotion controlling you? How many opportunities for happiness, words of love, or valuable connections have been lost because of a moment of rage? This is not just theory. I have witnessed and experienced it personally, when hasty words spoken in anger led to months of regret. Each moment of calm is, in essence, a step toward protecting your own blessings. A practical approach recommended in Buddhism is to pause before reacting. Take a deep breath, observe the emotion, and remind yourself that anger is temporary, but its consequences can be lasting. By learning to manage anger, we not only preserve relationships but cultivate a mind of serenity, allowing blessings to flow into our lives every day. Even when we observe relationships around us, stories of hearts broken by anger, regrets that come too late, it becomes clear that restraining oneself and nurturing compassion is not just a moral choice, it's a wise life strategy. Blessings, like seeds, only flourish when tended with patience and love. Anger is the storm that can erase all these seeds if we are not careful. Closing. And finally, as we draw this series to a close, remember that the deepest mistake is not just letting anger take over, but forgetting the very source of blessings, realizing that all love, kindness, and peace start within your own heart. When you understand this, you see that patience, calm, and compassion protect not only others but also yourself from the destructive storm called anger. Part 10. Forgetting the source. Hook. The greatest loss is not losing blessings, but forgetting where they come from. Story and teaching. Imagine a life that looks complete from the outside. A luxurious home, a shiny car, a successful career, vibrant social connections. But inside, the heart is hollow. No peace, no joy. The reason isn't a lack of blessings. It's forgetting the true source of all good, the divine, the universe, or simply life itself. When we forget the source of blessings, we begin to take everything for granted. We chase endless ambition, run after status, material wealth, or external achievements. No matter how much we have, there is always a sense of emptiness, a feeling of loneliness. And at any moment, what we thought we owned, money, career, relationships, can slip away, leaving only emptiness and regret. But when we remember the source, we see everything through gratitude. We realize that all good things don't appear by chance. They come from a chain of causes and conditions, protection, effort, and a bit of luck. When we honor and appreciate that source, each blessing becomes more alive, more enduring, and every moment of life becomes an opportunity to cultivate happiness. Imagine if each morning you pause for a few moments to breathe, to feel life, and to give thanks for what you have, be it your breath, your health, or a caring friend. You will see that blessings are not just external gifts but treasures within your soul. Happiness does not depend on possession. It depends on recognizing, appreciating, and nurturing what has been given. Ask yourself, are you living as if everything is a given, or are you mindful and grateful, staying connected to the source of all goodness? In many stories and personal experiences, those who feel deeply lacking are often those who forget this. Conversely, those who pause, who express gratitude, even living a simple life, are the ones who experience true fulfillment and peace. Buddhist teachings remind us that all we have, health, wealth, relationships, wisdom, are the results of causes and conditions. Forgetting this leads to pride, anger, or greed. Remembering it brings humility, gratitude, and the ability to share blessings with others. This is how blessings are not only preserved but multiplied, spreading and enriching every moment of life. Closing. So, this series comes to a close here. Yet the journey does not end. In our next journey, we will discover not just how to keep blessings, but how to multiply them, creating lasting happiness and fulfillment throughout life. Remember, everything you have, everything you cherish, starts from an infinite source. Recognize it, honor it, and stay connected, and you will see that life, whether simple or complex, is full of blessings and meaning.